Acadia National Park is said to be one of the most haunted places in Maine. Join us for this installment of Haunted Parks. Welcome to Morbid Outdoors, the podcast that ventures deep into the shadows of the wild. Here, we unravel the mysteries of missing persons, explore spine chilling legends, and share the most morbid stories that nature has to offer. From the depths of the dense forests to the highest mountain peaks, we'll uncover the secrets that lie hidden in the great outdoors. Join us as we navigate the eerie, the unexplained, and the terrifying. So if you dare, grab your gear and let's embark on a journey into the unknown. This is Morbid Outdoors. Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. My name is Elise, and I'm your host. Thank you all so much for joining me today. It really means a lot. It's so crazy to me. It's almost March. This year is going by fast. And yeah, I hope that you guys are all enjoying your weeks and are ready for March. This month, my spring break is at the end of the month, and I get to go down to Arizona and do a bucket list hike that has been on my list for literally 6 years, and I'm finally able to do it. So I'm very excited and I can't wait to share pictures online. So today we are going to talk about Acadia National Park, and that is in Maine. So let's start out with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the lands now known as Acadia National Park are part of the ancestral homelands of the Wabanaki Confederacy, including the Penobscot, Passamaquoddy, Maliseet, and Mi'kmaq peoples. For thousands of years, these nations have lived with, traveled through, and cared for these mountains, forests, and coastal waters of this region. We honor their enduring connection to this place and recognize their continued presence, sovereignty, and stewardship of these lands. All right, so we're going to start with negative reviews. Someone said, I was so psyched to come here, but there were just too many people. From what I understand, it's busy here most of the year. If you're looking for somewhere you can be by yourself, look elsewhere. On the positive side, the people at the visitor center were nice, but I really don't know how they keep a positive attitude with all the people going in here. The next negative review says the park has beautiful scenery. However, it's way too busy, and almost every site that you wanted to go and visit, there was no parking. Way too many people here to enjoy nature. Was so disappointed in this park. Someone else said, tried several attractions only to be stuck in traffic without parking. Felt more like a Walmart parking lot rather than a national park. And our next review says this park is a disaster of human overpopulation, made me wish for a plague. I think they commented that after COVID. Disappointed, nothing to see. This is the first park I leave a negative feedback, nothing to see. So I beg to differ. There's probably a lot to see. In fact, Acadia National Park is 49,075 acres, and it's gone by many different names over the years. On July 8th, 1916, it was Sur des Monts National Monument. On February 26th, 1919, it was renamed as Lafayette National Park. And then January 19th, 1929, it was then renamed again to Acadia National Park. In 2023, the park saw over 3.8 million visitors. That is a lot for such a small, and it's not super small, but 49,000 acres compared to the ones out west is pretty small. Acadia has a rich human history that dates back more than 10,000 years ago with the Wabanaki people. Native Americans have inhabited this area for at least 12,000 years, including the coastal areas of Maine, Canada, and adjacent islands. The Wabanaki Confederacy, or People of the Dawn Land, consisted of five related Algonquin nations, the Maliseet, Mi'kmaq, Passamaquoddy, Abenaki, and Penobscot. Some of these nations called Mount Desert Island Pemetek, which is like range of mountains, which has remained at the center of the Wabanaki traditional ancestral homeland and territory of the traditional stewardship responsibility to present day. Now, the 17th century unfortunately brought fur traders and other European settlers, while the 19th century saw an influx of summer visitors, then wealthy families. Many conservation minded citizens, among them George B. Dorr, who's known as father of Acadia National Park. These people worked to establish the first national park east of the Mississippi River and the only one in the northeastern United States. Acadia was initially designated Sieur de Monts National Monument by proclamation of President Woodrow Wilson, and then it was renamed and redesignated as Lafayette National Park. And then, like I said, we most recently know it as Acadia National Park. This park includes mountains, an ocean coastline, woodlands, lakes, and ponds. There are so many very famous trails in this national park, and I think the most famous summit is Cadillac Mountain Summit. It's 1,530 feet or 470 meters above sea level, and it was named after French explorer Antoine de Monthe Cadillac and is on the eastern side of the island. I'm probably not saying that right, but I also don't speak French. So, yes. This is the tallest mountain along the eastern coastline of the United States. The summit is the first place in the US where you can watch the sunrise from October 7th through March 6th due to its eastern location and height. This national park is characterized by a large seasonal variation in temperature, with warm to hot summers that are often humid and cold to severely cold winters. So choose wisely when you're going to visit. There is a 27-mile park loop road, and you can start driving on that on April 15th if the weather permits, and it ends on December 1st unless significant snowfall closes it sooner. So this is like the one road in and out, and it's supposed to be very, very beautiful. Because most of this national park is along the coast, you can actually explore it on guided boat trips or by sea kayak. Canoeing and kayaking are popular activities on accessible lakes and ponds, and there are about 125 miles or 201 kilometers of hiking trails that go through the forests and mountains, with while 45 miles or 72 kilometers of carriage roads can be hiked or bicycled. There are no motorized vehicles or electric bikes allowed. Winter activities include hiking on trails using snowshoes or traction footwear and trekking poles, cross country skiing on carriage roads, snowmobiling on the paved loop road, and ice fishing on frozen ponds and lakes. So, why is Acadia considered haunted? Well, like I said in the intro, the Acadia National Park is said to be one of the more haunted places in Maine, and one of those places that's often said to be haunted is the Compass Harbor Nature Trail, where many people see George Dorr, who is the father of Acadia National Park. And by many people, I mean this is a very common sighting that they see him in and around this trail. So let's talk about how his life was until his death. George Dorr was born in 1853 in Massachusetts, and upon his parents' deaths, he actually inherited their business. It was a textile business, and he became very wealthy. Now, the family moved to Mount Desert Island when they built the 58-acre house that became known as Old Farm in 1878. When George was alive, he used to work with John D. Rockefeller in the early 1900s Gilded Age and worked tirelessly to make Acadia National Park into what it is today. Now, George loved the idea of preservation and gave away money and land, and it is said that his trustees had to hide away money so there would be enough for a funeral when he died. He was a very generous person. So, for a time, he only accepted a salary of $1 a day as the park custodian. He lived on his family estate known as Old Farm on Compass Point outside of Bar Harbor, Maine, as a lifelong bachelor. And in his final years, he started to go blind and worried about Old Farm and the future of Acadia National Park. He died on the Compass Harbor Nature Trail at the age of 91 in 1944. His ashes were scattered over Bar Harbor. His estate was destroyed soon after his death, as there was no heir to take over it. He never married and never had kids. So the park was his life, and he donated his 30-room mansion to the park. But the World War still roared, and the government expenses for the park were thin. So it actually, unfortunately, his mansion kind of went to ruin. In 1951, the once grand home was demolished. It is said you can walk through the remains of the estate today, although there is nothing but ruins left that are now reclaimed by the park. And honestly, it's really sad because the National Park Service decided to tear it down rather than to preserve it. So no one was speaking up for the park and its history after George died in 1944. Now, while George was alive, he was a strong believer in transcendentalism, which is the connection between nature and humanity, and he was a very spiritual person. And to this day, visitors claim to have seen the ghost of George Dorr going through the trail together with his caretaker. According to Marcus Libsey, the author documenting most of the rumors about ghost stories from this island, he describes sightings like this. Now, George is often seen, there's a dark man wearing blue, and he appears for a moment before vanishing. The ghost looks like it is stalking hikers on the trail. So the Compass Harbor Nature Trail is frequented by hikers, both alive and dead. Again, the father of Acadia, the main guy instrumental in making this national park, haunts this trail. So it's very interesting that people say that he's with his caretaker. I'm not sure, like, how you would know who his caretaker was, but, his caretaker was taking care of him in his old age. So it's very interesting to me, and I have my own theories about George Dorr from what I've read about him. I don't know, you might can read between the lines, but he never married and never had kids, and he's often seen with his caretaker. So it's also said that a female spirit is haunting, this area because she appears on the overgrown avenue and passes through the forest and the ruins of the old estate. She walks all the way to the shore to the tip of Door Point before disappearing into the sea. So no one knows who this female spirit is, but she has also been sighted in this area. As you probably guessed, Acadia has haunted lighthouses. For another creepy location, you should check out the Prospect Harbor Lighthouse. It's in the northern portion of the park, and it's often shrouded in like an ominous fog. This is a fishing harbor, and it's been around since the 1800s. And the lighthouse was originally first built in 1850 in granite and then rebuilt in 1891 in wood. And it's not open to the public, but you could catch something supernatural when you take pictures of it. So it's said to be haunted. There's also a place called the Gull Cottage, and it's now used for Navy personnel, and it's also said to be haunted. According to multiple reports, the statue of a sea captain moves to face either the stairs or the sea. Other guests who have seen ghosts, smelled tobacco, witnessed doors opening and closing, and other strange things. The second haunted lighthouse is the Bass Harbor Head Lighthouse. Now, this one was established in 1858 to assist mariners in navigating the treacherous Bass Harbor Bar and guide them into the Blue Hill Bay. The station initially features a hand-rung fog bell, which was later replaced in 1898 by a 4,000-pound fog bell equipped with specialized striking machinery, and that actually is still in this lighthouse. The lighthouse rises about 56 feet above the water and the rocky cliffs in Acadia National Park and is one of America's most photographed and iconic beacons. But it is said that a vengeful construction worker, among other spirits, haunts this lighthouse. So, when construction began on the lighthouse in 1858, one worker suddenly vanished from his duties and was never seen again. Sometimes workers either do not get along with their coworkers, they find it's difficult, or they face other issues that might have led them to leave the site. So very little information is known about this worker, but it is reported that his coworkers discovered a bloodied axe hidden near the construction site with no explanation for how the blood was on this axe. So, as some stories do, it seems a page may have been taken from an Edgar Allan Poe tale, like The Cask of Amontillado. Many believe that the missing worker is entombed within the foundations of the walls or either the towers or the keeper's house. It's possible that he was killed after an argument with a coworker and that this coworker concealed his body inside the walls and it was subsequently cemented over. So, this ghost apparently takes vengeance on keepers of the lighthouse and caretakers by attacking their bodies. Many workers over the years have succumbed to lethal diseases like typhoid fever or have experienced long term illnesses, heart attacks, and strokes. Still, others have been involved in strange accidents, such as falling off ladders, suffering severe cuts, or tumbling onto the rocks below. It's been reported that there have been 10 tragic deaths near this lighthouse. So apparently, like I said, a lot of paranormal activity, and some claim to have seen an apparition of a man sitting on a stump or log outside only during snowfall. There's also been a female entity that has been observed rocking in a chair through the windows of the keeper's house. Others have seen a large deer prancing through the snow towards the lighthouse, only for it to disappear. When observers search for tracks, no deer tracks can be found. And I just want to say, it's not Acadia National Park, but when I lived in Southern Oregon, we went to a ton of lighthouses. And one of the lighthouses we went to was the Crescent City Lighthouse. And you have to go during low tide so that you can get across. And we took a tour. We're the only 2 people there, and the people that were living in the lighthouses at this time were, volunteers, and they were telling us the history of the lighthouse, and they also said that one was haunted as well, and some of the decoration in one of the rooms was made from human hair from one of the wives of the keepers that used to live there hundreds of years ago, so kind of creepy, and I'm sure there's still preservation of some of that stuff, art and relics in other lighthouses too. So, I don't know, old things creep me out a little bit, especially human hair used as decorations. It's just kind of weird. But back in the day, it was, I guess, totally normal. Acadia National Park also has a haunted sea cave. Now, this is called the Devil's Oven, and it's a sea cave that's hidden along the shoreline of the Mount Desert Island. And according to legend, it is a portal into the underworld. Now, this legend seems fitting because it was once the site of ancient rituals where evil people were burnt alive. It was believed that their souls would then be sucked into the underworld. People who have visited this cave at night have witnessed strange things such as flashing lights coming from the cave, while daytime guests have heard cries and chanting. So, I this is not somewhere I would want to go, but a lot of people do. So, you can only access this area if it's low tide. Also, all railings and signs to the cave have been removed, so you're really on your own if you want to risk your personal safety to visit the sea cave. That's not something I would do, honestly. There's also a famous murder that happened in Acadia National Park at Otter Cliff. So, people that visit this area have often heard a blood curdling scream. And that is so scary. And that is for one reason. So, she actually plunged 88 feet below to her death. And her husband, his name was Dennis Larson. And he had bad luck when it came to wives. His first wife, she actually drowned in a creek, and his second wife left him. So Dennis placed an ad in a Maine newspaper in search of a third wife, and 25-year-old Kathy Frost answered his ad, and they were married 7 weeks after that. The day after they got married, Dennis took out a $200,000 life insurance policy on her, and she didn't know that that's what happened. The marriage was, it was really hard, and Kathy wanted out of the marriage shortly after it began. But Dennis wanted to work through things, so he wanted to take her on a trip to Bar Harbor so that they could, like, work on things in a different location. Not that location would change their problems. So she reluctantly agreed, and she had plans of telling him, I want out of this marriage, let's get a divorce, because a lot of people were seeing the red flags, and many of her friends and family knew that he was bad news for her, and they begged her not to go on this trip to Bar Harbor. So he planned the trip and they went. And his suggestion was like, let's take a drive to Acadia. Let's take a drive through Acadia. It's beautiful. So she said, okay. And at Otter Cliff, the couple walked out to the high towering cliff, and Dennis pushed her off and she died. He could hear her final scream that echoed off the granite wall of the cliff. So it's really sad, and honestly, like, this seems like it happened in the 1920s. No, this was 1987. This happened in 1987, 39 years ago, not that long ago. And I have the incident reports for this case. So, October 13th, 1987. KL and her husband were hiking around Otter Cliffs when they apparently separated in order to explore the area individually. Her husband heard a scream and discovered his spouse's body 80 feet below on the rocks of the base of the cliff. A ranger and local EMT rappelled down to her, but she apparently had been killed instantly. The death is presumed to be accidental. And then, Friday, September 15th, 1989, on October 11th, 1987, DL reported to his two rangers that his wife, KL, 26, had fallen from the Otter Cliffs while the two had been exploring the area separately. Responding rangers found her body on the rocks, and subsequent investigation revealed that DL had recently taken out a $400,000 life insurance policy on his wife, and other evidence also pointed to the possibility that her death has not been accidental. DL was arrested, charged with murdering his wife, and convicted of homicide this past May. On September 13th, DL was sentenced to 50 years in prison, double the minimum sentence allowable by law. So, I talked about his first wife that drowned in a creek. Well, DL's first wife, LRL, these are all their initials, vanished in 1975 in Montana. DL told authorities at the time that he was the only witness as she was washed down Prickly Pear Creek, some 50 miles south of DL's hometown of Great Falls. He was never charged in her death. But upon investigation of Kathy's death, he actually admitted to having drowned his first wife in order to collect the insurance policy. And it seems like this guy, like, what, I don't know what you call the male equivalent of a Black Widow, but this was Harold Henthorn before Harold Henthorn. And it's just so crazy how often the wilderness is used to cover up crimes. I think this has happened at Zion National Park and at Rocky Mountain National Park, and it happens literally everywhere. And I actually read an incident report from Canyonlands, and I think this man pushed his wife off, but he said he didn't, or, I don't think he said he didn't, but he did say, like, I heard a scream and saw a flash and she was gone. And I don't know. I just always become so suspicious when there's only two people, it's a husband and wife, and the wife ends up dead. It's just really interesting. And this has also happened at Glacier National Park. But actually it was a woman who pushed her husband off a cliff. So this happens more often than you would think, unless you listen to this stuff and then it's pretty common. Acadia looks peaceful in the daylight, granite cliffs, crashing waves, fog rolling in off of the Atlantic. But when the sun goes down, the park changes. The same trails that feel welcoming at noon now feel watched at midnight. The same ocean that soothes by day starts to whisper at night. Maybe the stories are just that, just stories. Or maybe places that hold so much history, loss, and beauty don't forget the people who passed through them. Whether it's the sound of footsteps where no one stands, a figure in the fog, or a voice on the wind, Acadia reminds us that not all wilderness is empty. Some of it remembers. So if you ever find yourself in Acadia after dark, listen closely because the park just might be listening back. As always, recreate responsibly and remember, sometimes the great outdoors aren't always great. Thanks for listening to Morbid Outdoors. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, make sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform. It's free, easy, and it helps us out immensely. When you subscribe, you get updates on our latest episodes, and it also boosts our visibility, making it easier for other curious souls to find us. Another great way to support Morbid Outdoors is by leaving us a review. Whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, a quick review helps us know what you love about the show. You can also join us on Patreon for early and ad free content. Find us on Instagram and Facebook at Morbid Outdoors Podcast. You can email us case suggestions and your campfire stories at morbidoutdoorspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks so much for the support, and I'll see you next time.